Hello and welcome to this week's devotional. I'm sure a lot of things are going on this week as we just celebrated Christmas and are looking forward to the New Year's, and a lot of people, families are taking time off with their kids and maybe away on trips or have stuck around. So whatever may be going on, just pray that this would be a blessing, and I'm glad that you've chosen to take this time with me today. As we have just celebrated Christmas, continue to think about the theme of Christ being born and really how that ushers in the good news of Jesus Christ, the gospel. And as I've been doing some studying lately, and particularly around the gospel and what it is, what it means, one of the things that it can be confused with is our actions. We could say that my kindness to others, my loving act towards somebody was the gospel shown through my actions, right? And while those are good things and are a result of the gospel's work in our lives, that is not the gospel. And the gospel by definition is good news. And so news must be proclaimed. And so if we're going to actually say we are sharing the gospel, we have to actually speak the words that matter, that mean something, that communicate good news. And so what is this good news? Right? Why do we celebrate Jesus coming as Messiah, as Savior? And what is the good news? So I'm just going to walk through the gospel today. Just briefly as an encouragement to you and a reminder of what good news we cling to as believers and what good news that we are charged with to share with others, right? And so the good news, there's not good news without bad news. And the bad news stems from the fact that we as God's created beings, created people, are separated from Him because of sin. Sin that is inherited to us from the fall, but also sin that we freely choose to walk in disobedience to God's ways, what God commands, how God desires us to be holy as He is holy. We fall short, and therefore the bad news is we are separated from Him in that perfect relationship. And not only that, is we actually deserve punishment for that sin. For the wages of sin is death, as Romans tells us, as Paul tells us in Romans. And so that's the bad news. We once were in a relationship with God perfectly, and now we're not because of sin and our own selfishness. And so what do we do about that, right? How will things get put right? And that's what brings us to Christmas, right? We celebrate Jesus the Savior being born. And so what will make things right is for somebody to come in outside of us, live a perfect life that we could not live, die and take the punishment we deserve so that we can have that right relationship with God. And so that's what Jesus did. God came down in human form, in the flesh of Jesus. Because He was God, He was able to live that perfect life. He was able to bear the punishment for our sin that we deserve, the punishment of the whole world on the cross. And He died and He was crucified, and then He rose triumphantly in victory over sin and death in His resurrection on the third day. And so that's what God did for us, right? Emmanuel, God with us, that's what God did for us so that we could receive salvation. But then how do we, right? How do we then make things right with God, right? If that's what Jesus did for us, what does our response need to be? And Randy pointed this out Sunday morning as he held up that Christmas gift. And he said that this gift that's been offered to us has to be taken and received. And that is done in our church language. It is done by faith, right? It is done by taking that gift and entrusting it, taking it for ourselves. It's been entrusted to us, and opening it and enjoying it and receiving it and taking it as our own, so that the life, we say the life Jesus lived I accept as my life now. The death he died for the sin of the world, I accept as his death for me and paying the penalty for my sin. And I put my faith that that work covered everything. And I now have a faith relationship with God, which is restored and which will one day be brought to fruition in eternity with Christ. And so as we continue to think about this holiday season with Christmas just gone by, looking forward to a new year, maybe that's something that you need to consider as a resolution or whatnot for this upcoming year is how do you cling to the gospel and how do you proclaim it, right? Do you use more than just your actions or do you actually proclaim good news? Thanks for taking the time this week. Have a blessed week and I'll see you soon.